This is Tom from Dirk Witte Music Store in Utrecht, the Netherlands. And today we're taking a look at a very cool and a very clean Gretsch electric guitar, a vintage Gretsch from 1971. This is a 1971 Gretsch Chet Atkins Country Gentleman in its original walnut finish. So with that big back padding. Very iconic Gretsch model, obviously famously played by George Harrison in his earlier days with the Beatles. And also by David Crosby in kind of like the early days of the Byrds, and also a lot of other very well-known players. But those two are like the most iconic ones, especially George Harrison, obviously, because he played this on the Ed Sullivan Show. That like tens of millions of people saw back in 1964 or 1963. Can't quite remember exactly, but either way, super iconic model. And this one is then from 1971, and it's actually still very much similar to the one that George Harrison actually played when it comes to the configuration of it, because just like with like Gibson and with Fender, the early 1970s was kind of like the time, or like the point where they started to, dare I say, mess up, where they started to like cut costs and started to like be more so number oriented, if you will, that they wanted to put out a lot more guitars, with then the result that they would like cut corners, and the guitars from that time are not the greatest. Same then goes for Gretsch, but this is like one of the last good ones, because I believe that in 1972 Gretsch was actually like sold to a company called Baldwin, and that is when things really went that way. But yeah, not the case with this one. So this is like I said, still one of the good ones, and this one is also in a very nice shape given its age, and it is also 100% original. So let's dive into the specs. So we've got a quite large body, 17 inches on the lower bout from this point to this point, and it's also completely hollow, although it does not have any sound holes, because these are faux sound holes. The F holes over here, these are painted on. But this is indeed completely hollow, and it is also 2 inches deep. So it is not quite as deep as a full arch top, but it's also not as shallow as a thin line electric guitar. So really kind of resulting in this very unique design. It is also then made out of a laminated maple, so laminated maple top, sides and back. And like I said, still in a beautiful natural walnut finish. That is in a very nice shape. The binding is also in very nice shape, because old Gretsch guitars are known for binding rot, and it sounds as nasty as it looks, because the binding on old models made by Gretsch from like the 1950s and the 1960s, those then tended to shrink the material that they used, and then the binding would, if you didn't really take care of it, it would eventually just like fall off of the guitar, resulting in just big chunks of binding missing. But that is not the case with this one. You do get like 2 spots where you do see some binding shrinking, but those are very minimal, and everything is just totally secure. So a very good thing. The binding is then 4-ply on the top, and then also there on the back also 4-ply. Got the original electronics, so you've got 2 gold Filtertron humbucker pickups, Gretsch Filtertron humbucker pickups, US patent number embossed there on the top, also which US patent number embossed there on the top, and they sound really great, really that iconic Gretsch bright twangy type of sound that we all know and love. Got the original floating bridge with an ebony base, with then what I believe is called a rocker saddle that you can then heighten and lower. Got the original Gretsch branded Bixby tailpiece. Comes like a Bixby B5 style tailpiece It works really well. It's actually quite smooth feeling, so very usable. Also then got the original Gretsch pickguard, reading Chad Atkins, Country Gentleman, Gretsch. Also in a very nice shape. You do get a little bit of cracking over here at the screw hole, but nothing to worry about. It is totally secure and intact. And then when it comes to the controls, you have then got a master volume over here and then 2 volume controls over here for each of your pickups. And then you've got a 3-way pickup selector switch, and then then this is your tone switch, or like the tone selector, because with most vintage Gretsch guitars, you do not get a rotary tone control that you would see on like Gibsons or on Fenders, but you get a tone switch. And so what that then does is then in the middle position, it will be just basically your tone fully open on at 10. And then I believe downwards you would then get like a little bit of a tone roll off. If you have like a rotary control, then it will be like a tone set at around 7-ish. And then the other way, it will be on in its most dark mode, and that would then be like the equivalent of like a tone set to around T to around 2 to 3-ish. So still quite versatile, but you do not then have a rotary control. So yeah, if you are not really the type to use a tone control all that much, and you don't want all of the knobs that you don't even use on your body, then this is actually pretty handy. Do know that when it comes to the pickup selector, in the middle position, so when you have both of them on, these are wired out of phase. So and this then more than likely came stock from the factory, because we do not see any signs of anything being messed with, so we also just decided to leave it as is. But so in the downward position, you just get your bridge pickup, this position, neck pickup in the middle, both pickups out of phase. And it sounds pretty cool, but it is a bit quieter than your individual pickups. I believe that like modern pickups that would then be like wired out of phase use a different type of wiring that then does not cause it to be that quiet, because this is substantially quieter sounding. So do keep that in mind, and if you do want to rewire that, then you can. But what does kind of stand in your way is that you do have this back cavity, and traditionally speaking, with older models made by Gretsch, that would then hide a back cavity cover, which you can then open in order to like get to all of the wiring. But that is not the case with this one, because if you remove the back padding, you're just left with a blank back. So normally there would be like this round back cavity cover. Not the case with this one. Not entirely sure why they ditched that, because what you're then left with is, if you wanted to do some rewiring, you would then have to do that through the pickup cavities, which I've not tried myself, but I can definitely imagine that that would be really tricky, because you do not have a whole lot of space to work with. So if you do want to like have it rewired, it can be done, but is a bit tricky. But just wanted to put it out there in the middle position, out of phase, and yeah, no back cavity to work with. Moving on, also then got the original strap buttons that also work like so with the screw-on thingies, which is also very much Gretsch in style. And then moving on to the neck, you've then got a maple neck, so two pieces of maple, and then with a very thin center strip made out of walnut or mahogany, but looking very nice. You do got some wear, as you can see, but no damage whatsoever. So very nice shape. As for the profile, it's kind of a little bit chunkier than medium, I would say, but overall very nicely rounded. It's kind of like a in between a C and a D shape, I would say, but very nicely rounded overall, but then with a little bit of shoulder, and the size is also pretty medium, but a little bit beefier than medium, but just overall very nice feeling and playing. It is also, the fingerboard is then bound and made out of rosewood, or what appears to be rosewood, or it is ebony, and that it is a little bit colorful because the wood grain does not seem to be very rosewood-y. It's actually very tight, or like the pores are quite tight, so not 100% sure, because the specs that I could find for this one do read the fingerboard and being made out of ebony, but yeah, either way it looks really, really good, and it also feels really, really nice. Then got the thumbnail inlays, the fret markers, and you've then also got a 0 fret, which you also see on a lot of vintage Gretsch guitars, and then the nut appears to be made out of bone, and then you've got the very, very cool looking Gretsch Country Gentleman plaque over there on the headstock, as well as your logo. Headstock is then also bound with your original blank truss cover. And then on the back you've also got the original big Grover tuners with these very large buttons. I'm not 100% sure what these were called again, but they work really, really well, and they also just look super cool, very unique look. And then as for the condition, as we can tell, a very nice condition. You do got some wear, but it is completely original. Oh yeah, by the way, forgot to mention this little switch right here. That is a on-off switch. Just wanted to mention that. So in the middle position it is off, and then either downwards or upwards it is then on. Also a quirky Gretsch spec. But the condition, quite nice. The finish is looking very, very good, and like I said, the binding is also in a very nice shape. You do got like 2 spots where you do got some shrinkage going on, like over here you do got a little bit of a crack in the binding, but that is very minimal, and it is just totally secure. Probably also even hard to see. I think you can see that over here, but like I said, nothing to worry about. Wanted to put that out there. And then over here on the neck heel, this piece of binding over here also showing a little bit of shrinkage and discoloration, but it is also just secure and intact, so also no worries there. And the rest of the condition, like I said earlier, the back of the neck, it does show some wear, and the frets are original but also do show some wear, but wouldn't really worry too much about that. It just plays fine as is. I would say when it comes to the frets, like 80% of life left on them. Could use a recrown maybe, but it is not, it does not need it per se. But yeah, to have the original frets is actually pretty cool. So yeah, very nice condition. Also comes with this original hard showcase, so you really get the full package. So yeah, a very cool Gretsch Country Gentleman, kind of like one of the last of the good ones right before they were sold to Baldwin. So yeah, you still then get most of the iconic Gretsch Country Gentleman vibes and specs and features. So yeah, very cool and very iconic Gretsch guitar. So let's then hear what it sounds like. But first, if you're interested in this 1971 all original Gretsch Country Gentleman, be sure to head over to the links in the description for further details. If you enjoyed this demo, be sure to like the video and to subscribe to the channel for more cool weekly demos of cool electric guitars like these, or cool acoustics, bass guitars even, all of that really cool stuff. Also be sure to like us and follow us on our socials, Instagram and Facebook. Links are also in the description. With all that being said, let's see what this very cool vintage 1971 Gretsch Country Gentleman electric guitar sounds like. Going to be playing it through the Marshall JTM 45 Bluesbreaker style amplifier. So let's move on to that part and let's take this very cool vintage Gretsch Country Gentleman for a spin. you.